the Loch Ness Monster. This classic coaster is one of the few steel coasters in the world with the ACE designation for its historic contribution to roller coasters. The coaster also recently received a theming upgrade to make it a solid overall experience. But does all that really make it a great coaster? Find out in this review. Opening in 1978, this classic aero looper opened with the largest drop on a full circuit coaster with a 114-foot drop. Well, that's not very high by today's standards. This was a landmark attraction when it opened. It was also the first roller coaster to open with interlocking loops. Aerodynamics started out building classic family coasters in the 1960s, with rides such as Runaway Mine Train at Six Flags Over Texas. Then, in the 1970s, they started making looping coasters by introducing the corkscrew to coasters and made the first modern inverting coaster in 1975, with corkscrew at Knott's Berry Farm, later relocated to Silverwood Theme Park in Idaho. Aero would go on to make many classic looping coasters, and other manufacturers have even made very similar style of coasters. Most classic aero loopers have a drop to build up speed, and then two or so inversions with a turn, with not much else around the experience. But with the Loch Ness Monster, they wanted to take things a bit further to truly develop a solid coaster ride. The new theming gives riders some nice things to look at in the queue line. A lot of this part is outdoors, and likely the line won't be long enough for you to need to stay out here and look at this. Inside, there is still a series of switchbacks, so if the line is filled, it will take close to an hour or so to get through everything. And some of the end of the line doesn't have that much theming to actually look at. Dispatches are quick, and with long trains and easy to check restraints, this coaster should be putting a lot of people through it, as it will likely run 2 trains on a busy day, especially since it is a pain to move a train on and off the tracks with how the unique maintenance bay is below the station. As for seat placement, I enjoyed my front row rides, as the front seemed to just create an overall strong experience, with being pushed through the various elements. The back did offer better drop feelings with extra pull through the elements, and a bit better pop on the various drops, including the drop out of the station. I also preferred sitting on the left side of the train, as it just seemed to help with the other forces throughout the course of the ride. After leaving the station, you have this small drop down that is surrounded by the wooden exit line. In the front, this really doesn't do much, but towards the back, you can get a nice little pop of airtime here. Then you snake through some pre-lift turns, and with a retheme, you'll see an old train for this coaster that looks like it has been eaten by the Loch Ness Monster. And a guide will come on to explain to you that you need to go look for the monster. This is actually really cool, but with the loud left heel and the Scottish accent, it is a bit hard to actually hear while you're on the ride. Though, this does give the coaster great re-ride value to try and actually understand what is being said during these parts. After the turnaround, you get the record-setting drop down into the valley. I wasn't too hopeful, especially given the hard over-the-shoulder restraints, but you get a solid and enjoyable pop of airtime here as you really come out of your seat. There are better drops out there, as this is decent but not great, but this was so much fun for what it is. Then, you pop up into a turnaround. This is a janky transition into it, so you should get a small pop of airtime before a turn that is banked enough to give some enjoyable laterals. Again, more interesting and decent than anything great, but still enjoyable. You then pop up to crest the second drop, which equally gives a fun decent drop feeling before plunging you into the first iconic loop. The interlocking loops look great off-ride, but you really can't tell this gimmick too much on-ride, as they will always pace the trains to not be in the loops together, at least nowadays. The loop is forceful, as these old-style loops are, and there are a few janky transitions in the loops as well. Like, it feels like the top is just not connected right, so you violently jerk towards the top of the loop. And that jerking you about as well just adds a bit of character and bite to the overall force of this coaster. Next, you pop up into a turn, another small pop into another turn, both of which give a faint airtime pop with their transitions. This leads into a downward helix that offer decent to good laterals as you build up speed. With a new theming, including screens with an elusive Loch Ness Monster, this section is fun and enjoyable as you feel like the hunt for the monster is really on. Then, you have a small pop after you come out of the helix, and a second lift hill. This seems to have been necessary to make the interlocking loops work, as it is a relatively short lift hill, but I don't really mind the pacing being broken up too much, as the ride is essentially over by this point. A right turn later, and you have a nice drop down followed by the second loop that always seemed to give me an extra jerk at its apex. The Loch Ness Monster is also just chilling by this loop, but it's pretty hard to actually see that on the ride. The pop-up into the brake run was the weakest on the ride, so you might not get any airtime there. But you can look at the super unique transfer track on your way to this station. Overall, how good is the Loch Ness Monster? Nessie is a well-themed coaster that offers a nice mix of laterals and airtime pops while having a great setting in the woods. The slower pacing doesn't bother me, as it's in line with the overall history of the ride, and each element gives something enjoyable, which isn't the case on every coaster, even ones much bigger than Nessie. I rank this coaster much higher than maybe I should, as I simply love the atmosphere and mixture of the forces on the Loch Ness Monster. I place it right above Texas Tornado at Wonderland. Texas Tornado is not as complete of a coaster, as it has lackluster drops, no real airtime, and only decent inversions, even if they are the most unique looking loops out there. But Texas Tornado has 3 powerful kinks at the bottom of its drops that blend shaking and positive G's in just a beautiful way. I rank Loch Ness Monster just behind Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. I'm not like a big fan of the RMC Raptors, as some people might be, as I do find them a tad short. But Wonder Woman has a powerful drop, great whip, and an experience that makes you feel like the ride is completely out of control. It is a better ride, but I do like how the individual elements of the Loch Ness Monster stand out, which makes these two coasters comparable, at least for me. Do you also love the Loch Ness Monster? How good of a coaster do you find it? Let me know, and as always, Kap Kun Krap.